Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good! And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good! Okay, well let's learn English together. And welcome once again. Come in and get comfy. All right, so we meet again, Dr. Potato Legs. Ha! Well, and how are you all? Are you all having fun? Yes? Good. All right. And what about your weekend? Was your weekend a good weekend? Did you have a good time? Did you do, I don't know, exciting or interesting things? Yes? Well, I certainly hope so. You all know, don't you, that the weekend was designed for fun. You do know that, don't you? Oh, good. I wouldn't like to think that someone was unaware of the original plan for the weekend. It's there, waiting for us at the end of every week, and it was put there to give us something to look forward to. We've all got things to do during the week. There's work and school and homework and reports to finish for the boss and all sorts of other things. But then comes the weekend, the time when we're free or freer to do the things that we'd like to do. So remember, people, remember what the Americans say sometimes. Use it or lose it. Which means we'd all better use the weekend to the maximum amount possible. If not, someone might come and take it away. And that's a terrible thought. No weekend, horrible. Friday followed by Monday with no fun in between. Awful. All right, so let's run over the present perfect. And when I say run over, I'm using a specific meaning. The verb to run over has got more than one meaning. If we say, for example, that the bath is running over, then we mean the idea of overflow. Someone put the plug into the plug hole, as you do when you want to fill the bath with water, obviously. Then this person turned the taps on and the water came out of the taps and started to fill the bath. Okay. But this person got bored waiting for the bathtub to fill up with water, and so they went into the kitchen to make a coffee or turned the TV on to watch the news or something. And here's the thing, they forgot about the bath. Yes, they completely forgot about the bath and the running water. It completely slipped their mind until it was too late. Suddenly, they remembered the reason why they were wearing a dressing gown and slippers. Yes, they wanted to have a bath, but now, oh my God! Quickly, they run to the bathroom, but the water is already running over. There's too much water in the tub, and there's more and more water coming out of the taps every second. The bath is running over. The water is overflowing. There is too much water. It won't fit into the bath. 3 cubic meters of water and a bath which can hold 2 cubic meters. Result, the bath runs over. Okay, so that's one idea, but there are other meanings to the verb to run over too. If you run over someone or something, then it means that you knock them down with your car or bus or taxi or whatever vehicle you have. Maybe you drive a snowplow, so if you run someone or something over, you knock that thing down, or person, you knock that person down with your car and then drive over them. Okay, so that's one use, a very common use of the verb to run over, but that's not the meaning I used, is it? No. It'd be hard to put that idea into practice. Let's drive our car at the present perfect, hit it, and then drive over it with our vehicle. No, that's daft. No, the meaning of the verb to run over something here is the idea of looking at something again as a reminder so that we can see things one more time, so that these things become refreshed in our brains. Imagine that you studied something for an exam tomorrow. Perhaps tomorrow morning, before your exam, you run over your notes just to remind yourselves of what you learned the night before. Okay, so That's the idea that I was thinking of. That's what I want us to do. I want us to run over the present perfect, not in a vehicle. I just want us to go over it, to look at it again. Okay? Okay, well, I didn't hear any dissenting voices, so that means that we all agree with this great idea, doesn't it? Yes! All right then, let's have another look at the PP. Okay. So we know that your standard English sentence follows a pattern like this. Subject plus verb plus object. Okay, but with some tenses in English, we also know that the structure is slightly different, don't we? If, for example, we're using the present continuous or the past continuous, we know that we need an auxiliary verb to make the tense. Okay, so that means, as we all remember, that if we want to use the present continuous tense, we have to use the present simple form of the verb to be, correctly conjugated as the auxiliary verb. We can only make sentences with the present continuous by combining the present simple form of the verb to be, correctly conjugated, with the ing form of the another verb, the main verb in the sentence. Okay, and what do we know about the past continuous tense? Well, it's a similar situation, isn't it? If we want to make a sentence using the past continuous tense, then we also have to use the verb to be with another verb, the main verb of the sentence. The difference is, of course, that instead of using the present simple form of the verb to be, correctly conjugated with the ing form of another verb, the main verb in the sentence, here, with the past continuous, we use the past simple form of the verb to be with the ing form of another verb, the main verb of the sentence. All right, so that means, as we all remember, that when we're making sentences using the present continuous, then the auxiliary verb form will either be am, is, or are, depending on what the subject is. If the sentence is about me, if I'm talking about myself, if the subject of the sentence is the first person singular, then we use am. I am, or the abbreviated form, I'm. If the subject of the sentence is he, she, or it, if the subject is the third person singular, then the form of the auxiliary verb, the verb to be, is, the correct form of the verb to be for the third person singular in the present simple. He is, she is, and it is. He's, she's, and it's. And, as we all know, if the subject of the sentence is you, the second person singular, or any of the plural subject forms, we, you, or they, then the auxiliary verb form will be are, as that's the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be for the second person singular and the plural subject forms in the present simple. Okay, so we know that if we're making a positive sentence using the present continuous tense, then the form will either be am plus ing, is plus ing, or are plus ing. Okay, now what about sentences in the past continuous? Well, essentially the same thing happens, only now we're not using the present simple form of the verb to be, are we? No. For the past continuous, we use the past simple form of the verb to be as the auxiliary verb, which means that instead of using am, is, and are, we use one of two forms, was or were. Do you all remember why? Yes, that's right. It's slightly easier in the past continuous tense, isn't it? Yes. For the past simple form of the verb to be, there are only two forms, was and were. So, if the subject of the sentence is the first person singular, I, then we use was as the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be and add an ing form of another verb, the main verb. If the subject is you, the second person singular, or any of the plural subject forms, then we use were plus an ing form of another verb, the main verb. And what about the third person singular? What do we do then? Yes, that's right. The correct form for the third person singular form of the verb to be in the past simple is was. So there are only two forms to worry about when we want to make the past continuous correctly. Was plus the ing form of the main verb if we're talking about the first person singular I, or the third person singular he, she, or it. And were plus the ing form of the main verb when the subject of the past continuous sentence is the second person singular. You or any of the plural forms, we, you, or they. Okay, so that means that all tells us that we shouldn't have any problems when it comes to working out the structure to the present perfect simple, doesn't it? Yes, well, certainly the present perfect simple shouldn't cause us any problems with structure, should it? Once again, just like the present continuous and the past continuous, this is a tense which requires an auxiliary verb, that's all. The only difference is that whereas the auxiliary verb we use to create sentences with the present continuous and the past continuous is the same verb, the verb to be, either the present simple forms am, are or is, or the past simple forms was and were, here, to create the present perfect simple, we need the verb to have as the auxiliary verb. That's all. Okay, so let's check one more time. What's the correct conjugation for the verb to have in the present simple? I have, you have, he, she, it has. We have, you have, they have. All right, so that means that we all know which form of the verb to have we've got to make the present perfect simple. So that's the auxiliary verb dealt with. Depending on the subject of the sentence, we're going to use have or has. If the subject is I, you, we, you or they, then the correct form to use is have. And if the sentence is about the third person singular, he, she or it, then the correct form to use is has. Okay, and then what? What do we do then? Well, as we saw earlier, the structure we use in most English sentences is subject, verb, object. But when we're dealing with a tense with an auxiliary verb, the structure changes to subject, auxiliary verb, verb, object. But we all know this, don't we? Present simple, subject, verb, object. I like potatoes. She likes tomatoes. Past simple, subject, verb, object. I liked potatoes. She liked potatoes. Present continuous, subject, auxiliary verb, verb, object. I am eating pizza. She is eating pizza. Past continuous, subject, auxiliary verb, verb, object. I was eating pizza. She was eating pizza. Present perfect simple, subject, auxiliary verb, verb, object. I have lost my keys. She has lost her keys. Okay, well, there's nothing too hard about those, is there? In basic sentences, we follow the pattern of subject, verb, object, if there is an object. But when the tense we're using is formed with an auxiliary verb, then the form is subject, auxiliary verb, verb, object. That's all. Okay, so when we want to make a positive sentence in the present perfect simple tense, that means that we all know what we have to do, doesn't it? Yes, we take the subject, then follow with the correctly conjugated form of the verb to have, the verb which is the auxiliary verb, and then what? Well, then we get the verb, the main verb. Okay, and what form is the main verb in? Yes, that's right. This main verb has to be in the past participle form, doesn't it? So, subject, auxiliary verb, main verb in past participle, and then the object or the rest of the sentence or whatever. My trousers has the dog eaten. Which word is the object? Yes, my trousers. What about the subject? The dog, good. And the main verb? To eat, good. And the past participle form of the verb to eat? Eaten. And that only leaves one element, the auxiliary verb, to have, correctly conjugated for the third person singular. Has. Brilliant. The dog has eaten my trousers. And on that rather strange note, honestly, I think you should feed the dog more. It's obviously very, very hungry if it eats trousers. Well, either that or it's got mental problems. Potentially some sort of dog mental disorder. Well, we've seen the same thing in pheasants. Maybe it also occurs in dogs. All right, people, I'll leave you to think about canine mental disorder. I'm off home for a coffee. Thankfully, I don't have a dog, so the chances are that my trousers are still where I left them. Phew! Hopefully, if you do have a dog, that dog is well behaved and doesn't do strange things like eat trousers. All right, I'll see you all tomorrow. Have fun with your dog if you've got a dog, or your chores if you've got some chores to do. And remember, if you do have chores to do, turn the music on. It'll make time fly! See you later. www.mediaclick.hu. Bye!